Third hour, Clay and Buck kicks off now. We're joined by Julie Kelly. Declassified is her Substack, which you can subscribe to. Julie, just want to say before we dive into the latest Lawfare shenanigans, we have spent really the entire show on what we think is actually the most important story in the country today. I know you agree, which is what's going on in this aftermath of Helene and the relief efforts. But we didn't want to leave it out there. We don't want anyone to say, oh, well, they're not talking about the big Jack Smith bomb that was dropped. They're avoiding. So, of course, we will address this now. I guess the first way to do it, and just to be clear, the Democrat media thinks it's the most important thing in the whole country, right? I mean, they're far more important. Clay and I were reading the headlines, New York Times, Washington Post, much more concerned with Jack Smith's latest thing than what's going on in Carolinas and the areas impacted by the hurricane. But okay, so they're saying this. We have an election coming up. Talk to us. Anything new in this? And why is this supposed to be an October surprise?
That's such a really great question, because there isn't a lot new in here. A lot of this has been sort of regurgitated from, I want to make sure my mic is on. Okay, good. Regurgitated from both the House impeachment against Donald Trump for J6 and, of course, the J6 House Committee report. But what this does, and how I have described it, is Jack Smith's opening arguments for a case that will never make it to trial. This weak, watered down, and in some instances still unlawful 4-count indictment that Jack Smith has against Donald Trump will never survive a Supreme Court test again, both for immunity and the Fisher decision, which is, we've talked about 1512C2, the Supreme Court overturning how the DOJ has applied that post-Enron statute. It represents 2 of the 4 counts in this indictment. This is never going to trial, even if Donald Trump loses. So this is his opening argument. Jack Smith is a partisan political hack, a former Obama a DOJ official, who also has been overturned by the Supreme Court 9-0 in the Robert McDonald conviction. And he's got a record of losing. So this is his only opportunity to not just salvage this J6 case in the public square, but also try to salvage the remaining shards of his decaying reputation. So that is what we're seeing from what I call this dirty dossier. We had the Steele dossier in 2016. Now we've got the Jack Smith dossier. But to your point, the media they are acting like it was Christmas Day yesterday. Jake Tapper's on CNN. He's waving the 165 pages around. You've got the analysts there and the commentators talking about how this will be a fatal blow to Donald Trump's candidacy, that he will not win re-election because of this issue. But again, it also gives cover for the real scandals and the real crises, which is, of course, the devastation, the apocalyptic images that are coming out of North Carolina. And also the other crises that we have, war in the Middle East on a few different fronts, an open southern border with criminal migrants coming across into our country. So this is a perfect cover for the media, the Democrats, and the Harris-Walz ticket to pivot away from the real issues to, again, this 4-hour disturbance almost now 4 years ago.
I love this, Julie, because I was out watching 8th grade football last night. My phone blows up with, oh, my goodness, I thought, oh, what's going on here? I go look, and I'm like, this story is not going to last 24 hours. And it's interesting, this story came out, and Donald Trump today, actually in the betting markets, which I like to follow, took the lead over Kamala Harris. So Buck and I have been talking about New York Times, Washington Post. It's their top 4 or 5 stories. Meanwhile, people are dying in North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina with the storm that came through that Biden and Kamala can't seem to respond to. But it landed, to use a phrase from the Obama administration, really like a nothing burger. And they're going to desperately try to make it happen. And then I'll tell you what's going to happen. In 24 hours, even the ardent left is not going to be fueling the clicks and the ratings that they need, and it's going to be over. And I can only imagine, I think the last time we had you on, Julie, I was saying I want a Jack Smith cam for election night. If Trump wins, this guy has spent years of his life now trying to get Trump, and Trump is actually going to end up president of the United States. All of his work is going to go up in smoke, and his career's over.
Yes, let's hope his career is over, and let's hope that there is accountability, because what this document, Clay, represents, what he filed yesterday, is the most brazen, egregious example of DOJ interference, not just interference in a presidential campaign or presidential race, but using the full weight of the Department of Justice, the most powerful law enforcement agency in the country, to destroy Donald Trump's chances at winning. Now, to your point, I don't think it is. I think that this will sort of fade away, except at CNN and MSNBC and Washington Post and New York Times. But look what you've got today. Kamala Harris with Liz Cheney at an event in Wisconsin. What are they going to talk about? Not the issues that people of Wisconsin care about. They're going to talk about this fake threat that Donald Trump poses to democracy, whatever that means, how he almost, ended our country, as Joe Biden calls it. We almost lost everything, Joe Biden says, about January 6th. And that is what they will be talking about. That's all they've got. And so, but there's going to be more to come. This is only the first hit out of this motion. There also will be an appendix that will be unsealed in the next probably week or so, that will give more witness testimony, disclosing grand jury testimony, FBI 302. So they're going to keep piling on. Judge Chutkin is going to allow Jack Smith to do this, and really denying Donald Trump his due process rights. While this is an opening argument on paper, if it was at trial, Donald Trump would be allowed immediately to respond, cross-examine witness, etc. None of that is happening now. It is not just election interference, another DOJ just disparagement of the law of due process, the rule of law, and denial of constitutional protections that we all have, including Donald Trump.
Speaking of Julie Kelly, Declassified is her Substack, where she does a lot of great work on this issue. Julie, if Trump wins, I think we all know that this goes away, as it should. Mm-hmm. If for some reason, heaven forbid, but it could happen, Kamala Harris becomes president, what do you see as the future of the Jack Smith prosecution based on what we now know, the Supreme Court weighing in, Jack Smith's dirty dossier? Is it really just about the election and the politics and the election interference? Or do you really think that Jack Smith is going to try to lock Donald Trump up if he loses?
I think he will still try. I know we've been talking about this for a few years since Jack Smith was appointed, now November of 2022. So if Donald Trump loses, yes, they will continue the January 6th case. It will never survive, as I said, the Supreme Court, where it will end up again, because it will be another immunity question, will never survive an appeal on immunity protections and the Fisher ruling. So this indictment, now he could bring superseding indictments, especially based on, something that Donald Trump maybe did after this election. They're going to keep piling on. But I'll take this even a step further. If Donald Trump wins, you can guarantee that Tanya Chutkin will still hold some sort of hearing on this case in November or December, before Donald Trump is sworn into office, some sort of hearing to keep this matter alive until the very last minute, force Donald Trump and his lawyers back in her courtroom over this motion or a few other motions that we're still expecting. So they're going to wait till the very last minute, if Donald Trump wins, to keep this hanging over his head as this cloud that we saw, the same thing in 2016 with the made-up Trump-Russia election collusion hoax. Also, we still have what's happening in Florida. Judge Aileen Cannon in July dismissing that indictment based on her findings that Jack Smith was unconstitutionally appointed. That also will get to the Supreme Court. If Donald Trump loses, it still will make its way to the Supreme Court. And I'm pretty sure, based on comments that we saw from Justice Clarence Thomas and others, that the Supreme Court would eventually conclude that his appointment violated the appointments clause of the Constitution. So there's still a lot more, grist that Jack Smith can squeeze out of this, Donald Trump winning or losing. But they are not going to give this up anytime soon, and will not give it up easily, regardless of the outcome of the election.
Julie, do you get the sense that much of this lawfare blew up in their face? They thought, that my calculus on this, and I think Buck would sign off, is that they thought, oh, this will strengthen Trump with right-wing voters, but it's going to be ultimately damning for him in the general election. Instead, it seems to have basically strengthened Trump across the board. And that's why I'm a little bit surprised. This feels like such a Hail Mary. And
Mhm.
if anything, if you ask me to analyze the politics of this, not the law, just the politics, because I think the law, as I've said for some time with you and on this show, is total bunk, right? It's just crap. But I
Mhm.
think it actually works to Trump's favor that they try to dredge this back up once October comes up, because it shows that ultimately this isn't really anything other than a political move, which benefits Trump.
Right. I definitely agree that the lawfare, whether it's from Jack Smith, whether it's in Georgia from Fannie Willis, whether it's what's happening in New York in those cases, has completely backfired, blew up in the face of the Democratic Party. I mean, look, you had Joe Biden bullied out of this race because Donald Trump was going to beat him despite what Joe Biden and his White House and his agencies and his general counsel, we know, in cahoots trying to concoct the classified documents, they had all the levers of power, right? And they sent DOJ prosecutors to Georgia and they were working with the team in New York. And so all of this blew up to the extent that Joe Biden had to pull out of the race because Trump was going to beat him so badly. So you would think that they would learn their lesson, but they really have not. And again, this is cover for the failed Biden Kamala Harris administration. These crises blowing up not just in the country but around the world. And this is all they can hang their hat on is J6. So Jack Smith swoops in once again, gives them an assist, gives them this dirty dossier, and gives them more talking points to avoid discussing the real issues that Americans care about.
Julie Kelly, check out Declassified on Substack. Julie, thanks for being here.
Thanks, guys.
October is officially Cybersecurity Awareness Month. A reminder how important it is to protect your online data from the bad guys on the wrong side of the keyboard. Your best defense is a LifeLock membership. LifeLock offers the single best online identity theft protection there is. No company more committed to your cybersecurity than LifeLock, the leaders in online identity theft protection. Serious kind of crime. Too many people have fallen victim already, especially the elderly. This happens when cyber hackers hack into a company or institution, steal their data. That's a data breach. They happen all the time. If you want comprehensive identity protection from cyber criminals and real peace of mind, you need LifeLock. LifeLock alerts you to more uses of your personal info, giving you greater control over your identity. You get an immediate call, text to notify you of a problem. And if you're a victim of identity theft, LifeLock provides you with expert support when you need it. $1 million protection package reimburses you for damages caused by data breaches. Start protecting your identity today with a 30-day free trial at lifelock.com using my name, Clay, C-L-A-Y, as your promo code. Terms apply.